This is Revelations.Unveiled.Detroit. Super Predators of Hate, Part 3. Jackson fought for the Americans too. After flunking out of Ohio Wesleyan University his first semester, he did the first of two things that would shock his former Quaker school classmates. In 2009, he enlisted. Kids from Friends don't do that, recalled his history classmate. Going to West Point is one thing, but to go and just sign up. Jackson would later boast of getting a freakishly high score on the Army's General Technical Exam, which enabled him to serve as an intelligence analyst in the country with which he had long been obsessed, Germany. After more than a year in Baumholder, he and other members of the 3rd Battalion, 4th Infantry Regiment were sent to Afghanistan just before Christmas in 2010. Jackson was assigned to assess routes for the risk of improvised explosive devices. Now, while his reports were reliable, co-workers often had to remind him to finish them, according to a fellow soldier who spoke on the condition of anonymity. As a specialist, one of the lower ranks in the Army, he was passed over for a promotion repeatedly, but didn't seem to mind. I think he was one of those people who was just good floating, the soldier said. He never showed any signs of racism, according to the soldier, who said that Jackson got along with his unit's Black, Hispanic, and Asian service members, including his direct supervisor, who was African American. Jackson would describe his time in the Army as one of the happiest periods of his life. During my deployment, I never thought about killing myself for the first time in years, he wrote in his suicide note. I had a purpose and mission in Afghanistan, however preposterous that mission was. But when that mission came to an end in the fall of 2012 with an honorable discharge and a holiday in Italy, Jackson again found himself consumed by suicidal impulses. He sat in a hotel suite hot tub in Rome. He thought about cutting his wrists. When he walked over the Tiber River, he contemplated throwing himself in but couldn't. As I got on the plane to come home, he wrote, I knew I had made a terrible mistake. A hate-filled YouTube binge. It was a few minutes after midnight and Jackson was on YouTube again. As he sat in the Baltimore row house he shared with his older brother on March 5th, 2017, Jackson clicked on a video of a Black supporter of President Trump mocking political correctness, according to the records of his online activity. Soon he was watching a white pride remake of a song, The Nightmare Before Christmas. After about an hour, he clicked on an anti-Semitic video on Adolf Hitler. As dramatic music played, conspiracy theories about the Rothschild family gave way to footage of the Fuhrer, Nazi soldiers, and adoring crowds. The video ended by blaming Jews for World War II. The Saturday night YouTube binge, which didn't end till 6 a.m., was nothing unusual for Jackson. He had floundered since returning from his overseas stint in the Army more than 4 years earlier. His parents encouraged him to get a job, but he didn't. He took online cybersecurity courses at what was then University of Maryland, University of College, through the GI Bill, but never got a degree. Instead, Jackson spent up to 18 hours a day on the internet, where his personal obsessions over race and sex were honed into a plot to start a race war. I have always had an inexplicable and instinctual murderous hatred of white women who sleep with black men, he wrote in his 2013 suicide note. At that time, however, he described the emotion as utterly irrational and perhaps caused by spending too much time with the Fuhrer as a kid. Again, I stressed that it only bothers me for a second and that I am not a racist, as I have African ancestors, as do we all, he wrote. But by early 2017, his views had hardened amid a toxic digital deluge. In the 3 months before the attack, Jackson visited websites related to white supremacy on 415 occasions, an average of nearly 5 times a day, according to the analysis later done by prosecutors. Like Dylan Roof, he frequented the Daily Stormer, where he read incendiary articles about black crime. He visited sites about Nazism another 139 times during that period, reading conspiracy theories about how Germans were the victims of the real Holocaust, and watching a YouTube video extolling Hitler as a human masterpiece. Added to this was the mixture of racial pseudoscience and a pornographic obsession with black men having sex with white women. Finally, there was a fixation on the apocalypse, including dozens of articles about global warming. As he sank deeper into his sick world, he also began assembling a small arsenal: a hunting rifle, a shotgun, 2 knives and a Roman-style gladius, a sword he purchased on Amazon for $56. By March 5th, 2017, Jackson was facing a crisis. After years of $1,000 monthly checks while he half-heartedly looked for a job, his parents were finally cutting him off. He began to talk about re-enlisting. But when he woke up after his YouTube binge, Jackson launched straight into videos of Roof. As he had read Dylan's Roof racist manifesto and watched the news coverage of his massacre, another plan took shape in Jackson's mind. A week later, Jackson stood in the departures area at Dulles Airport International in Northern Virginia, hugging his parents. For weeks, he had been talking about how he had re-enlisted and was headed back to Germany. Now it was time to say goodbye. Boarding, he texted from a few hours later as United Airlines 932 prepared to take off. Auf Wiedersehen, his father answered. Love being your dad. Danke, Jackson said, ending the message. We have a great family. But Jackson was not on his way to Germany to re-enlist. He was on his way to New York City to kill black men. After his arrest, many of Jackson's friend and family members and Army colleagues would wonder how they missed the signs of his masterminding hate. But email and text messages assembled by investigators show the lengths to which Jackson went to hide his true feelings. When his parents asked to see his re-enlistment papers, Jackson spent days meticulously forging them, researching bases in Germany, and even inventing the names and signatures of fellow soldiers. As they had driven away from Dulles, Jackson took a cab to a nearby hotel where he texted them the next morning. At Frankfurt, on the way to baggage claim, then on to shuttle to Wiesbaden, he wrote. Feels good to be back. He boarded a bus at Union Station in Washington the following afternoon for New York City. For 5 days, he walked around Manhattan looking for black men to murder, a period he later described to police as target acquisition. He listened to music on his iPhone as he hunted, at one point looking up the lyrics to the Alice Cooper song, No More Mr. Nice Guy. At night in his hotel, he Googled how to stab someone in the heart. All the while, he pretended to be in Germany to his family. Getting into the groove? Meeting any colleagues his parents texted on March 18? I'm settling in nicely, he lied a few hours later. I've met lots of potential colleagues, but I won't know who I'll be working with on a day-to-day basis until next week. On March 19, his last night in a hotel before his savings ran out, Jackson sat down to type his manifesto. Declaration of total war on Negroes, he wrote in bold at the top underneath a swastika and a Templar cross, the symbol of Christian crusaders. If white women don't stop betraying white men by having sex with blacks, he wrote in a 2-page screed, the total destruction of Western civilization within a generation is guaranteed. He called on the governments of the United States, the European Union, Britain, Russia, and China to exterminate blacks by using genotype-specific biological warfare agents. Hail victory! Sieg Heil, he signed off. Sir James Harris Jackson. The next day, minutes before checking out of the hotel in Times Square, he snapped selfies in his underwear, holding the Roman sword against his bare chest before recording a brief video. The time has come, and we have no choice, he said in the video, which was viewed by the Post. This has been building for many years, and we've really been left with no options. The planet is going down fast, and the best have to be saved. The weak have to die. It's just that simple, he continued, turning his face to the ceiling and exhaling loudly with his eyes closed. This has to be God's will. What other explanation could there be?